The Washington Free Beacon. Beast mode. Brit smacks down Don Lemon on reparations. I don't know if you've seen this going around. It's pretty awesome where Don Lemon just like spouts off at the mouth, as always, about all the woke stupidity that he likes to spout off about. Then he gets difference of opinion from this representative in England. Now, before we get started, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. Please watch the video to the very end. That does help the algorithm. If you are like, I don't want to watch this video, blah, 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 hey, do me the favor of just at least turning it on and having it on in the background while you do other stuff. That would be preferable. I mean, I watch most of the YouTube I watch it's on in the background while I'm doing other stuff. I have the ability to work my job at the same time I have YouTube on. Before I get into this video, I do want to define the terms woke. Some people are coming at me and saying that I don't know what woke is. Woke is anti-white, anti-male, anti-straight. There's some other things in there too. If you wish to erase, harm, punish, get rid of white people, that is woke. All right? I know that it's supposed to be, originally it was supposed to be like, an awakening to what the reality is. All the non-whites are amazing and men are evil and women are amazing. That's what it has become. All right? If you want to argue that, we can have an argument about that. But unless you're going to bring your points, don't even bother. I know that my fans, you guys are awesome. Thank you for watching, everybody who is watching. If you hate watching, more power to you. Go ahead and watch. But I know my fans already know this. I do appreciate everybody supporting my work. Really, I do. Whether it's good or bad. But if you're going to come at me with these arguments, get your facts straight. Get your terms straight, and then we can have a discussion. Now, let's just go ahead and take a look at this video right away because I think it's pretty interesting.
Beast mode.
3, 2, 1.
And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, 500.
Okay, first point made. Don Lemon is worth millions of dollars, I'm willing to bet. $12 million. Now, let's say this is way off. Let's say it's off by 90%. He's still worth $1.2 million. That's a lot of money. You don't need to work the rest of your life. If you had $1.2 million in the bank, go to some foreign country where the cost of living is lower than in the United States, you would be fine the rest of your life. Don Lemon is a black man. I mean, I know that race is a social construct, right? Because we got to be woke these days. I'm going to go with he's black. If you asked him, hey, are you black? He'd be like, yeah. What the hell? He was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So you mean his parents were already in the United States when he was born here? Maybe because of colonialism? Oh, boo-hoo, woe is me. You are one of the 1% in the world. I mean, in the country, really. But, I mean, overall in the world, that's even a smaller percentage. You're one of the 0.1% or something. One of the richest people in the world. And, you deserve reparations because your ancestors were taken here against their will so that you could have this extravagant lifestyle. Cry me a river.
100 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you are... you have all of this vast wealth. Those are legitimate concerns.
Okay, so the concern is King Charles inherits a vast wealth of English royal family. Prince William now takes over his father's $1 billion estate. This is following the death of Queen Elizabeth. And so they're like, it's not fair. And I agree. You're right. It's not fair. It is 100% not fair. We should have wealth equality across the board in an ideal world. I mean, that's communism. At the very least, it's socialism. And countries have tried this in the past. We have to introduce a new monetary system. We just have to. Our economy's crumbling. We have to start over with this new monetary system. Everybody gets, 10,000 of the currency, and we move forward from there. And guess what happens? Poverty still exists. People still fall into poverty. I don't know why human beings have this ability to do this. There are people who are going to rise above financially, and there's people who are going to fall behind financially. It's really unfortunate, but that is the reality that we live in.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British.
This is true. If you were a slaver back, say, like 1850, the last thing you wanted to see was an English ship on the horizon.
In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, We need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I love this look on Don Lemon's face. Let's go to the end. This is his look here, and watch his face over here. He's a little bit more chipper here, I think, than he is over here. Yeah. We can get back over into here. He's like, oh yeah, he's not really paying attention. You can tell because he's looking at something down below. You see him read something down below, and he's like, see, he's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of like into this. Let's go ahead and get this over with. You know what? I get the impression here he's like, oh yeah, this is a lazy argument. I'm totally going to just like wipe the floor with this woman. She's not going to be able to come up with anything that's going to counter my argument. And then he's like, oh, wait, what? Yeah, Don Lemon, slavery has existed forever. Human beings have been using other human beings to do things. Slavery exists today in many different forms, even in the West. Here in America, I mean, and this is true across probably every country in the entirety of the world. You have your children do things for you for free. I mean, you get them room and board, but that's what you do to slaves too. Younger folks always are helping out the older folks in society. This is just called human kindness. It is a form of slavery, though. I mean, it's done for free. I help people out on a regular basis whenever I can. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, I remember this is before the pandemic, but I mean, this is one that stands out to me. I was walking out of the gym in LA because I had to go to work. But there's this woman who's had this box. It wasn't a very heavy box, but it was just really big and awkward. And she's kind of struggling with it. So I was like, hey, do you need help with that? Just because that's what human beings should be doing for each other all of the time. So don't even start with me on this BS where everybody needs to get paid for everything, because it's just not true. We should help each other out in society. Let's see what the article has to say. It's not a very long article, so we're going to skip the top part here where she's just like, oh yeah, hey, it was done in Africa. 2,000 navalmen died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. The commentator added, if reparations need to be paid, we need to go back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who is rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Yeah, I mean, the Africans primarily were just supplying these slaves to the Europeans. And they did it without a thought for the morality of the situation. The exchange comes just days after CNN announced Lemon will relinquish his solo primetime show, Don Lemon Tonight, to help helm the network's struggling morning news show. Many media observers called the move a demotion, eliciting a stern response from the marquee CNN anchor. I was not demoted, Lemon says on his show Thursday. Yeah, you were demoted. CNN is crumbling because they don't have Donald Trump to talk about, and they don't talk about real news. Typically, they talk about, oh, the world is not woke enough. We need to get rid of Whitey. He's evil and he's bad. He did terrible things. He did colonization, which allowed me to have millions and millions of dollars in the bank. It's awful, right? So, I mean, yeah, is it terrible? Is it tragic that people were brought to the United States from Africa? Very well could have been. I was not alive then. I'm assuming that it was. I'm assuming that many people were subjected to horrible conditions. I've seen the photos of the whippings, the scars from being whipped. That's terrible. I know what it's like to suffer physical violence. Thing is, I mean, people today living in America are benefiting from those terrible things. And you know what? Not only were blacks enslaved, but whites were enslaved too. Of course, it was done typically, almost always, in the form of indentured servitude, which was limited to 7 years because the Bible says you can only enslave your own kind for up to 7 years. That's a practice we've done away with because it's illegal. I mean, that's a form of slavery. It's illegal. And the people who were in indentured servitude were worked frequently harder than the blacks, because a black person you could have for, 50 years as a slave, whereas an indentured servant you could only have for 7. So you might as well get the most out of them that you can. And my ancestors, I'm largely Slavic. The word slave comes from the word Slav. So my ancestors were enslaved too. They were white. Until my ancestry has been traced back on my mother's side to Egypt. However, my Slavic ancestry does come from my father's side. So this is not so cut and dry, Don Lemon. And what about the people living in the United States who are black, who moved here, I don't know, in 1900, who have not traced their ancestry back? Maybe people who came here it wouldn't even have to be 1900. It could be 1890. So that's 10 years earlier. Maybe you don't know. You don't know where you're. Remember, there was that really, really famous viral video went around of the girl getting her 23andMe results, and it turns out she's white, and she was all crying and stuff and all upset.
Are they trying to tell me I'm white? I'm so confused. The HVR variants listed below indicate DNA sequence patterns that you share with European populations. The combinations of HVR variants determine your membership. The sequence similarity score represents our 100% confidence level in your result. Haplogroup H, sequence similarity score 100%. And then they have the nerve to say, we understand that this information may be difficult to absorb, you think? Especially if you were not aware of any European ancestry on your mother's maternal line. It is important to note that even though we did not find African ancestry for your maternal lineage, it does not mean that you are not African American. It does not mean that your mother is not African American, and it does not mean that you have no African ancestry anywhere in your family tree. Please feel free to contact one of the specialists in our office to discuss other lineages that you can test to find your African roots. Do you guys see this? It legitimately says, you're not African. I really feel some type of way. Like, I really thought I was about to learn something really new and interesting about myself, and I haven't. So anyway, there's this other thing that they sent me, and there's a sheet of paper that says European maternal results. What does this mean? Many people are confused as to how they received a non-African result. Please use the following information as a resource to help you explore your ancestry. There are very few people of African descent born in the Americas, Europe, or elsewhere outside of Africa that are 100% African. We know that. I already know this. The transatlantic slave trade and period of slavery created an environment in which people from all different countries and cultures were mixed. In fact, America is known as a melting pot. The MatriClan test only analyzed one of thousands of lineages of your family tree. That one lineage represents your mother's 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 mother's. No, I don't even care. This was a waste of time and excitement and money, honestly, because I literally found out nothing interesting about myself and spent hundreds of dollars on this test.
What do you mean you didn't find out anything interesting? Really? You didn't find out anything interesting at all? You don't think that maybe it's interesting that this whole time you thought you were black when actually you're white? I know. White people, we're just so boring, right? I mean, there's nothing interesting at all about us. But she didn't know her ancestry. How many other people are here living in this country don't know their ancestry? How many other people are here in this country who are black and don't even know their father? I'm not saying that's common, but it's not okay. Larry Elder told a story about how his father didn't even know his father, so he doesn't know his grandfather. Grandfather was gone, out of the picture, completely out of the picture, because his grandmother was running around, being irresponsible. So you don't know. I mean, maybe Larry Elder can only trace his family back in this country for a little while before it's all gone to other countries, all off in other countries. And then he's like, oh, I don't even get reparations because none of my ancestors were slaves in this country. Not only that, but what about the Civil War? She talks about the 2,000 naval soldiers from England that died fighting against the slave trade. What about the hundreds, almost 400,000 northern soldiers who died to end slavery in this country, in the United States? My ancestor was one of them. I have the letters. Now, my ancestor survived, but he still went through that hardship of, I'm probably scared out of his mind, getting shot at, watching his colleagues, watching his friends in the military die, because they did. He writes about it. So-and-so died in our last battle. Now, this is all ancient history. I don't think that I deserve anything special from the fact that my family has Slavic ancestry, that my ancestor fought to free the slaves in the Civil War here in the United States. My ancestor fought to get independence from the British, which could lead to the independence we have today, the freedom that we have today, the standard of living we have today in this country. Now, maybe it would have been better off if we'd stayed under England. I don't know. But still, all that was done by my white ancestors who are so evil, and they deserve to pay you money because you're so special because your skin is darker and your hair is curly. You're not special, Don. And we're going to go ahead and switch gears here a little bit.
Well, the Ghanaian government called 2019 the Year of Return. It's the 400th anniversary of the first slaves that came to America.
You want to be a little bit more specific there, bucko? You mean the 400th anniversary of the first slaves to come to what is now the United States. And don't forget that, in 1619, that was the most important date for this country. We've been told 1619.
And they want to get people to come visit. Many people came to visit. But what I don't think Ghana was ready for, that a lot of those people came to visit a couple years later, a year later, were like, I'm sick of racism in America. I'm sick of all of it. So since 2019, thousands of African Americans have moved, and many of them under 30, single.
So this is an NPR program about blacks moving to Africa because, the United States is just the worst country in the world.
Ghana has been a kind of symbolic home for African Americans.
In 1957, when Ghana became a country, it became the leader of Pan-African movements. We get Marcus Garvey, and like you said, W.E.B. Du Bois. A lot of people, African Americans, especially intellectuals, associated themselves with being in Ghana.
In this thick forest up the hill of Ikuapem Mampong, Kweku Asantu Maroon Asare lives in a one-bedroom house. He moved from Florida to Ghana to settle permanently a year ago. Maroon says racism and repeated police attacks on Black Americans forced him out of the U.S. He made the final decision to relocate to Ghana after the murder of African American George Floyd by the police in Minnesota.
Before George Floyd, you had Ahmaud Arbery. And the list goes on.
Yeah, the police have never ever killed a single white person. They've never killed a Hispanic person or an Asian person, a mixed race person, an Indian, a Native American, an Inuit person. They've never killed any of those people ever. Those people are all safe, sanctioned. Not to mention the fact that, George Floyd fought with the police, begged to be held on the ground, and died because he was overdosing on drugs. Not because the police held him on the ground. Not because the police were white. Ahmaud Arbery died because he attacked a man who had a gun, tried to take a gun away from the man. It so happened that man with the gun was white. Oh, therefore, it was racism. See, you're going to find this stuff if you look for it. You're going to see what you want to see. But the fact of the matter is there are other reasons why these things happen.
So what I seen as anomalies was just normal for the system. So at that point, I told myself I would leave and I would go where the system is different. When you leave America, everything is white.
Damn it! How dare it! What is it thinking? What? It's just white stuff? What is that? It's not like they founded a whole country for white people.
You pass through custom, it's dominated by white people. You pass through the airport, it's dominated by white people. And when you arrive in Ghana and you get off that plane and you don't see no white people.
Oh, it must be paradise then. That is the definition of paradise, isn't it, after all? If I were to say this about leaving Africa, I would be strung up. But no, it's okay to say it about white people.
And then you tell yourself, this is where I should be. A place where the people look like me. Even if you don't know the people, you still feel a connection. Now I use Asantu, Kweku, Maroon, Asare. That gives you more history about who I really am instead of Andre St. Patrick Lewis.
No, it actually doesn't give me more history about who you really are. Because I know what none of those words mean. All I have to do is know that you're a black man. And that tells me that, hey, your ancestors come directly from Africa. No filtration. Mine have been filtered through Europe. But it doesn't tell me anything more than that. And I could tell that by your name, probably. And if not by your name, by looking at you. You freaking, this is so stupid.
Since 2019, Ghana's call for people in the African diaspora to return home has led many Black Americans to settle in this West African country. Born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, she's now a permanent Ghanaian resident.
So my name is Nakia Brown. That's the name my mother and my father gave me. And since I've come to Ghana, they've named me Yeli Yini, and it means speak once.
Yelieni Sonsori has been living in Ghana for almost 1.5 years. She's not only found a home here, but also love. She married a Ghanaian and is now pregnant.
Yes, I am currently 8 months pregnant with my first daughter.
Sonsori says the thought of having a child in Ghana gives her enormous joy.
I envision my child just being able to have a stronger sense of identity. So here I envision her being able to be more like, my natural hair is beautiful, my natural skin is beautiful. I come from an abundant and glorious people.
And you, of course, cannot have that in the United States. That would be impossible. And what does coming from an abundant and glorious people mean, precisely? Why is it so important to you to state that your people, specifically, are glorious? Not all people. Your people. Sounds like racism to me.
She experienced a lot of racism and trauma in the US, going back to her history class in high school.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I was traumatized by my history classes in high school, or how many times they were racist against somebody. You know, there's this just constant. Never mind that that's illegal in public schools.
They omit African history, and they tell you your history. They started from the point of slavery. Basically, they begin their story of Africans to the Europeans is when we picked you up from on the boat and took you to America. When I started to really realize that I was being lied to, which was probably around like when I was 18 or 19 years old, and I'm 28 now, I realized, wow, this history is not true.
Yes, the history is not true. They're teaching you fake history, and that very well may be that they are teaching us fake history. I was not there to see it. But I can tell you this, you imbecile. The reason your history was omitted is because we can't teach you all of history. I didn't learn anything about South American history. Wow, what a concept. I didn't learn anything about Eastern Asian history either. What do you know? Oh my goodness, no. It's terrible. I learned about communism and how that happened in Eastern Asia. That was it. That was the extent of it. I didn't really learn anything about Russia. I didn't learn very much about Europe. I actually took a specific class called Western History, and it was about Western European history during the Middle Ages. The history was focused on the United States, not Africa. I bet you know what, if you go to Ghana now and you went to high school there, they wouldn't teach very much about the history of the United States. I mean, you act like this is some big, like, just affront to you because, how dare they not teach my history? I'm black. I have to have my history taught. It's like, nobody teaches any of this history. This is so ridiculous. These people, these freaking woke people are just so out of touch with reality.
Then, the series of police brutalities against African Americans got her thinking a lot more about where she wanted to live.
I'm not going to stay here and be oppressed and be subjected to this. I'm worth more than that, and I have a vision of something greater that I can do.
Yeah, you know, you're so very oppressed in the United States. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a job posting, and they're like, oh yeah, you're black, you can't have this job. No. I've never worked with a black person ever because we don't let them have jobs in this country at all. It's so oppressive. I mean,
Here, she realized life was totally different.
One time we passing, a police, and the police is like giving me a high five, and I've never gave a high five to a police officer in my life. I've been alive 28 years. I wouldn't even feel comfortable touching one. Like, keep distance, first and foremost. That type of stuff, it makes you, like, angry just to know it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, it's frustrating that United States is not perfect. I'm willing to bet that Ghana's not perfect either.
But Ghana also has its own challenges. The country is struggling to deal with corruption, not to mention its struggling economy. Currently, there is high inflation as the cost of food and fuel and almost everything is skyrocketing. You are angry and you come to Ghana, a developing country. Can that anger sustain you?
You have to also have a passion for your people. When you have a vision of victory, of I want to see my people win, that's going to sustain you over a long period of time.
She is also optimistic that as more black people leave the U.S. to settle in African countries like Ghana, it could also help speed up the development of the continent.
People leaving the U.S. to go to Ghana could make Africa better. What about the U.S. ideals would make Africa better? I mean, this is such a terrible place for Africans. Obviously, we can't have any good ideas here. You got to go to another country to have any kind of good experiences in the world.
Being in America, you're only going to be able to be tolerated. And that's not the vision I don't think a people should have of themselves, is being in a place where you're tolerated only. The vision is for people to be free and independent and to have control, be self-sufficient over themselves.
Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
A few miles away from Sonsori's residence is the home of 75-year-old Mawiya Kambong. She moved from North Carolina to settle permanently in Ghana.
I could see the beauty here. I could see the naturalness here.
Yeah, there's no nature in the United States, it's all paved.
It's not that Ghana's without problems because there's, ethnic prejudice and some corruption and all.
You see, this is something that I have pointed out before. The ethnic prejudice, how black people are prejudiced against their own kind in Africa. That's kind of crazy. We don't do that anymore here in the United States. I mean, nobody looks at me and says, "Oh, well, you're mixed. You're a mixed European, therefore we don't like you." I've never experienced any whites being prejudiced against any other white group of people.
But I could see that everywhere I turned, there were black people
Oh, that's not racist at all.
doing everything. And so mine was not a last straw. Mine was an intent to come.
She came with her husband for over 40 years. Kambon says the relocation of many black Americans like herself is sending a strong message to America.
The world is changing. This is no longer going to be a world for imperialism. It's the black man's time. And we're rising all over the globe. And so wherever we are, we're going to be great.
Prove it. Prove it to me. I have yet to see that every black person is just great. And not only that, but why is this a zero-sum game to these people? Why? I mean, I don't understand why they think it's like, oh, white people have been on top. Now it's our turn to be on top. I don't understand this. Why can't we all be on top at some point? I mean, not taking turns, but like I've said many times, my now former boss had this job in a managerial position for 10 years. He was black. I mean, black people can't get ahead though. Black people can't be on top. What are you talking about?
Ghana hopes people of the African diaspora who relocate to Ghana can help steer its development by bringing new skills and talent, as well as American entrepreneurialism. 2 years ago, the government said it would allocate about 500 acres of land for African Americans moving to Ghana, carving out enough space for about 1,500 families to settle. The government also said it will facilitate citizenship for those who wish to become Ghanaians. Back in the home of Songsori, she has a word of advice for anyone planning to settle in Ghana.
It's not just about wanting to escape America, but it should be also about how you want to build Africa. So if you're just thinking about escaping, then you're going to come here and get frustrated because there's also issues that you might want to escape in Ghana.
Yeah, I mean, Ghana is a very, very poor country. Here we have some statistics on how poor the country is. We can see that Ghana is right here. It's this red country right here. 41 to 60% percentage of country population that is living on under $2 per day. Let's check another one here. This one says that, here's Ghana right here. It's this yellow one. Somewhere between 20 and 30%. This is CIA's World Facto Book. So it's population below the poverty line, 20 to 30% in Ghana. Yeah, go to these places and you're going to have these troubles. Here we have people living in extreme poverty, percentage of population living on less than $1.90 a day. Ghana is here, this light pink one. That's, according to this, 5 to 15%. You be the judge of which one is correct. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is Ghana is a very poor country. Ghana has corruption. It has inflation. It has ethnic prejudice, just mentioned in this program alone. But these people want to go there because, hey, look, I can look out and see that like everybody I look at is black.
That's racist.
Less than 1% of the population of Ghana is white. Something like 2% is Asian. So you're going to see very many black people if you go there. If that's so very important to you, that's racism. I'm just going to call it what it is. And I don't even care. If you want to be racist, go ahead and be racist. I'm not here to stop you. That's not my job. My job is, with this channel, is to tell you that, hey, look, white people are not evil just because they're white. All right? There may be lots of evil white people in the world. It's not because of the color of their skin. Men are not evil because they have external reproductive organs. That's not how this works. Straight people are not bad because they are straight. You do not get brownie points for being trans or being LGBT, LMNOP, QRS, YV, WTF. You don't get any special treatment for any of that. But no, our culture says, they're so wonderful. Look, stunning and brave. Stunning and brave. BS. You're not special because you're different. I mean, you are, but it doesn't make you important because you're different. Anyway, that's all I got for this time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.